Ah, there's the sun. Hey, what's up? Hello. Today's review is of a book called Fledgling by Octavia Butler, which I read and borrowed from the library and will not be showing on the screen the entire time I talk about this book because honestly, I don't really love this cover, but that is neither here nor there. This is a book that I read for the book club that I go to as part of the library here in my city, and it was unique. Octavia Butler is known, I think, most primarily for her book called Kindred, and this one has a lot of mixed opinions. If you kind of scroll through the reviews on Goodreads, there is definitely some confusion about what kind of book it is. Is it horror? Is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Is it paranormal? Is it just another vampire book? Is it a vampire book for pedophiles? All these questions get asked because a lot of people place it into a lot of different categories. So this book begins with an individual awaking in a cave, which, as we know, is most generally a metaphor for rebirth. And it does not fail to be a metaphor for that in this book. This person is sort of slowly coming to terms with who they are and what they are because they can't remember anything. All they know is that they have been injured and they're very hungry and also very tired. And it slowly is revealed that this individual is a small, almost child-sized woman, and she is later picked up on the road by a human. And as the story progresses, it is uncovered that this individual is sort of a vampire, and she learns more about how she came to be who she was and her past and a little bit of how she's going to live her life because she does have amnesia and she can't seem to remember literally anything, including like how to be a person or the world around her or anything like that. It's obvious that Octavia Butler is a keen observer of society around her, and she poses in this book, I think, a lot of questions about othering and freedom and choice. Like, she's very much paid close attention to the political world, and not political as in like voting and parties and candidacy and things like that, but the kind of like daily action and choice kind of political. The main character, whose name I won't mention just because I don't want to spoil it too much, is a rather difficult to stomach type of person. The way that this book is written, she begins having amnesia and doesn't know anything, and it's written that way. She speaks in sort of short sentences that describe exactly her thought processes and what she feels and what she sees, and it's short and sweet. And I believe the back of the book reads that it is written with lean prose, which is a phrase that really makes me feel weird to say out loud, but it's definitely true. It is very briefly written, very succinct, and it sort of grows over time. It's a really neat trick as the main character begins to learn more about herself and her past and her family. She grows in her ability to speak with more adjectives and more description. It's quite an interesting thing, but it does not make her any easier to stomach just because she is so short with the way that she speaks sometimes. She's extremely matter-of-fact. She hasn't really figured out how to joke. And so you kind of start to enjoy the book, or at least I did enjoy the book more as she learned more, because everything is from her perspective, and if she knows nothing, the reader also knows nothing. And that was a little difficult to work with here, especially since that there are lots of large events that take place in this book. We start absolutely knowing nothing, and we end with a very big, dramatic, sort of climactic scene. And there are these large events that take place, but there's also a lot of waiting around in between, and because we're working with vampire type creatures here, you know, you're never really sure whether it's day or night, and you sort of have to flip everything that you think about, because often when things are happening, it is nighttime when there are other characters, and daytime when there are no characters, and it's just a little bit confusing. The time passes in a way in this book that is very unclear, and that made it difficult for me. I'm hesitant to say too much about the plot because it sort of does get revealed as the main character learns more about herself, but I do want to mention that there are a lot of other auxiliary characters in this book based on the fact that these vampires, which we're just going to call them the Aina, they live in groups, and because they live in these groups, there are a lot of people that have to live with them because they constantly have to drink people's blood. And in this particular type of vampire, the Aina form really emotional connections with the people in their groups, both other Aina and humans, and that emotional connection is said to be so incredibly strong that it is sort of impossible for people to break apart once they join to each other. And yet, the way that sort of the auxiliary characters are written in this book, we didn't really learn too much about them other than the fact that they're meant to be very emotionally attached and sort of a little bit about who they are, and that's it. I would have liked to know a little bit more about their backstory, but I guess if we're working with a lean prose model, then we weren't going to get that, but perhaps that was the reason that that was done. What I think Octavia Butler does well in this book is to open up a lot of avenues for thoughtful discussion about othering, about choice, about who we are based on our identity in relation to others, but I don't think she ever really resolves them. That could possibly be because she wrote this book at the end of her life, right before she died in 2005, and it's not been as favorably reviewed as another one of her books called Kindred. I think that that is an interesting point to sort of ponder with this text, is what happens when an author invites you to think about something but doesn't give you the closure, perhaps, that the story might be benefited from closing, or you might benefit from seeing how that particular story wraps up those sort of sociological ideas. So that being said, I would give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that's what I gave it on Goodreads. It gives you a lot to think about, and if anyone else has read this book, I would very much encourage you to please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. It's hard to talk about this book without giving a lot of the plot away, but if you would like to read it, it's important that you sort of learn at the same pace as the main character, and so I don't want to say too much. What I will say, though, is that there are a lot of sexual exploits and sexual tension in this book that I did not anticipate, although I guess after the first chapter that was a little bit foreshadowed and I should have anticipated it, but man, it just was everywhere. So there you have it, Fledgling by Octavia Butler. Please, like I said, if you have read it, let me know down in the comments. I would love to chat to you more about it. If you are interested in a very quickly executed book about vampires that is probably not an angle that you have read based on the whole paranormal fiction genre that has really come to life in the past few years, I would encourage you to check this out. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives. Everything you want to know about us is in the description, and we'll see you very soon.